LWO1 WeatherNet. Liftoff conditions looking pretty good.
ESTS is ready for launch.
Ignition. Liftoff.
Falcon 9 has cleared the tower.
Ten, 9, 8,
Side booster ignition.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Stage 1 flight press.
T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
T plus 40 seconds, Falcon 9 successfully lifting off from Launch Pad 39A at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. We're taking that Starlink orbit to its first, Starlink satellites to its first targeted orbit and eventually a circular orbit. We actually just throttled down for maximum dynamic pressure, or max Q, on those 9 Merlin engines. We'll expect to hear that call out here shortly.
Vehicle supersonic. Max Q.
So call out there for having gone through the point of maximum aerodynamic pressure. That's when the loads on the vehicle are the highest from the combination of our velocity, but increasing while the density of the atmosphere decreases. Now, coming up in just about a minute, we will have 3 events happening back to back. First will be main engine cutoff, or MECO. That's where we'll shut down those 9 Merlin engines. You can see the plume expanding from them on the back of the rocket here. That'll be in preparation for stage separation. Now, stage separation is where the first and second stages will separate. First stage will continue on a parabolic trajectory towards the drone ship, while the second stage continues on to the final event, or second engine start number 1. That's where that Merlin vacuum engine will ignite. And once it lights up, it'll propel the second stage along with Starlink satellites into orbit. Actually heard earlier that we've started chill in on the turbo pumps of the Merlin vacuum engine to get it ready for that full flow of propellant and oxidizer. So coming up just about 12 seconds from now, expect to see MECO, its main engine cutoff, then stage separation, and then at about T plus 2 minutes and 45 seconds, second engine start number 1.
MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
So there is successful stage separation and second engine start. You can see the grid fins deploying on the left-hand side of your screen. That's the first stage. On the right-hand side of your screen is the Merlin vacuum engine starting to glow brightly with the heat of that combustion reaction. First stage making its way back towards
Acquisition of
planet Earth.
Maryland.
Coming up here, should be fairing deployment shortly.
Separation confirmed.
There's a call out on the nets and a beautiful shot of the Starlink satellites. You can see on the right-hand side there a little bit of planet Earth. And actually, you can see a fairing half there trailing away. Now, as a reminder, we will be attempting to recover both the fairing halves today on our recovery ships, Mystery and Mischief, that are also stationed at in the Atlantic Ocean. Second stage heading towards its targeted drop-off orbit. Now, while that's happening, the first stage is actually going to execute 2 burns to make its way back to Earth. You can see right now that we are actually pitching the first stage vehicle to try to get those Merlin engines facing towards the atmosphere.
Signal Bermuda.
Those periodic gas clouds that you see along the first stage are actually from our attitude control system. And once we get to the top of the Earth's atmosphere, we'll ignite 3 of the 9 Merlin engines for entry burn. That'll help slow down the first stage as it re-enters the upper parts of the Earth's atmosphere. And then the second of those burns will actually happen much closer to touchdown on the drone ship. That's the landing burn, where we will ignite just a single Merlin engine at the center of the set of 9. And that'll slow down the vehicle rapidly before hopefully a soft touchdown on our drone ship. On the right-hand side of your screen, continuing to see the Merlin vacuum engine continuing to burn. This is a pretty long burn for the Merlin vacuum engine. This will be going until about T+8 minutes
Second stage on
and 48 seconds. Call out there from the navigation officer that the second stage is on a nominal trajectory at this point. So flying right down the middle of the bars. Cool shot from the interstage on the left-hand side of your screen. That's looking up at where the second stage previously was, looking out towards space, because those Merlin engines are pointed towards planet Earth. Coming up in about a minute from now, we'll expect to see that entry burn start. Entry burn expected to last about 20 seconds. Again, that'll be 3 Merlin engines, and usually you can actually see the plume sort of creeping up the side of the rocket, since the vehicle is right now both going thousands of miles an hour. At this point, the first stage has reached the highest point of its orbit, the apogee, so it is on the downhill portion of its trajectory. You can see Earth getting bigger and bigger.
Stage 1 FTS is saved.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
Startup of those 3 Merlin 1D engines on the first stage. Second stage continuing to burn nominally.
Expected loss of signal, Cape.
Stage 1 entry burn shut down.
So with that, we will continue on the first stage to apply some attitude control from those attitude control thrusters. And as the atmosphere gets thicker and thicker, the grid fins will actually start to gain most of the control authority.
Second stage on nominal trajectory.
And the grid fins will continue to fly Falcon 9 in, giving us aerodynamic control. Looks like we just lost the link as it re-enters there. Here's a shot of the drone ship. Again, that's 624 kilometers off the east coast of Florida, awaiting first stage for a landing attempt. Second stage continuing to look good. That glow that you see on the nozzle extension is normal. That's just from the heat of the combustion reaction radiating out to space through the nozzle. Now, part of the reason why the second stage has such a large nozzle is to try to get the most out of the propulsive gases that we're producing in the propulsion chamber. And so that allows the second stage to be a little more efficient in the vacuum of space. Coming up here, we expect to hear a call out for landing burn start on the first stage. That'll be just a single center Merlin
Stage
engine.
1 landing burn startup.
Shortly after, we'll expect to see landing leg deploy, and then hopefully a touchdown on the drone ship.
Terminal guidance.
Stage 1 landing leg deployed.
Looks like right
Landing confirmed.
in the center. That marks 61 successful
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
recoveries. Third time for this booster. Now, coming up about 8 seconds from now, second stage is also going to shut down its engine for second engine cutoff number 1. Keep an eye out for that on the right-hand side of your screen.
Seco 1.
And successful shutdown of the Merlin vacuum engine. Navigation officers will be assessing whether we have ended up in the right orbit. And most of the way up, we were right down the middle.
Nominal orbit insertion.
So good call out there. We're in the first of 2 planned orbits. Now, the second stage is going to coast in this orbit for about the next 30 minutes. We're actually going to take a break while it's doing that, but we'll leave you with an animation that shows exactly where the stage is in this coast phase. And we'll see you back here at T plus 42 minutes for reignition of the second stage's engine. See you back shortly.
Expected loss of signal, Bermuda. Unexpected loss of signal, Newfoundland. Acquisition of signal, Goonhilly.
Welcome back to our webcast coverage for our 13th Starlink mission. Now, if you're just joining us, we had a successful liftoff at 7:29 a.m. Eastern Time, successfully recovered that booster. Second stage is on a nominal orbit, and we're just awaiting about 10 seconds from now what's called second engine start number 2. That is ignition of the Merlin vacuum engine to bring us into a circular orbit.
MVAC burn 2, and good shutdown.
So super fast second engine start number 2, and then followed by second engine cutoff number 2. That was to raise the perigee, or the lowest point of our orbit, to be circular and similar to the apogee. And we also, looking at the data, have confirmation of a good circular orbit. And we actually got some cool shots as well from recovery. This is a shot from our drone ship. Just read the instructions, and you can see on the horizon there, that is the first stage from today's mission on, of course, I Still Love You. Again, that's the third landing for that booster, 61st overall recovery. And we actually caught a fairing half today as well. That's the active fairing half, and this fairing half has flown 3 times, landed it right square in the middle of the net. We did have to abort the catch attempt on the passive half, but we're in the process of recovering that from the water on our other recovery vessel. So from here, second stage is going to continue in this orbit for about the next 16 minutes. During this time, it'll actually start to pick up a spin on its central axis. It'll start using its attitude control system to start a small rotation, and that's to give the Starlink satellites the momentum they need to space themselves after they do their deployment activities. That's expected to happen at about T+1 hour, or around 8:29 a.m. Eastern Time. So we'll see you back then. Welcome back to our coverage for the Starlink launch. Now, if you're just joining us, we had successful ascent of the first stage at 7:29 a.m. Eastern Time. We recovered that first stage as well. Second stage is currently in a circular orbit around the planet, about 275 kilometers above the Earth's surface. And coming up next will be deployment of the 60 Starlink satellites. We actually just saw a shot of them earlier. Now, the second stage has picked up a slight spin. It picked that up from its attitude control systems. And that's to give the Starlink satellites enough momentum so they can space themselves out after deployment, which is expected just about 40 seconds from now. And you may have noticed it's a little bit dark. We're actually on the nighttime side of the planet. And a cool shot right now from a camera on the top of the second stage, looking up at the stack of 60 Starlink satellites.
Starlink deployed, confirmed.
So you can see the Starlink satellites gently floating away from the second stage. Now, shortly they will, once they've had a chance to space out a little bit, they'll deploy their solar arrays, and over the next few days and weeks, they'll start to distance themselves out using their onboard ion thrusters to make their way to their final operational orbits, about 550 kilometers above the Earth's surface. So happy to see them off and on their way to complete their mission. And with that, it's actually going to bring our webcast coverage to a close. We want to give a big thanks to the Range and the Federal Aviation Administration for supporting today's mission. If you're interested in getting future news about Starlink, head on over to starlink.com and sign up for updates. With that, we hope you have a wonderful rest of the day and a happy end to Scrubtober.